world of football is, I wouldn't say it's normal, because all of a sudden...
It's never been normal, is it? It's absolutely bonkers.
I am joining you live from my bar.
Oh, wow. Well, potentially could be worth it for 30 goals a season.
Hello, my name is Roshan and thank you for joining us on In 20. Be it in the bath or in his car, Danny will always join us because the show must go on. Before we get into it, I'm not sure if you watched it, Danny, but if you had seen Jude Bellingham's goal for Borussia Dortmund, that was something very, very, very special. And as usual, as soon as he scores the goal,
he's not bad, is he? He's not a bad player.
No. And the best part is, because I am a Dortmund fan, ignore this jersey. This was a gift from my former colleague, Reem, CL Saunders. But I am a Dortmund fan, and I see him week in, week out. And his ability to adapt to any position in that midfield is unbelievable for me. Is he the next big thing? Or are we once again overhyping him?
It could well be Roshan. I mean, he's an outstanding talent. In this modern day world of CDMs and attacking midfielders and number 10s and number 8s, and do you know what? He's an unbelievable midfield player. He can play the holding role. He can get about. He can be box to box. He can score goals. He can attack. You know, you're going back to the archetypal, typical midfield player that can, run the game. He's very, very young. I think he's in a fantastic place at the moment at Dortmund, where he's given freedom. I think he's given a little bit of protection because he's there from the English media and the English press, and maybe he's not quite getting the pressure that he would have, say, if he was in the Premier League. So I think he's in a really good place to learn his trade, develop, keep improving. But without a doubt, in 2 or 3 years, we're going to assume that he comes maybe back to the Premier League, is going to be unbelievable.
All right. Is this a fair comment? What he does with the ball at times is more important than what he does without the ball? Or is it vice versa?
It's a bit of both. The only reservation I would say, there are huge comparisons maybe to Dele Alli. Think of how Dele Alli was obviously on loan at MK Dons, played about 100 games in the Football League, then went to Tottenham, and then for 4 seasons was on fire at a very, very young age. For England as well, was absolutely outstanding. And all of a sudden, for whatever reason, burnout, desire, whatever it may be, change of managers, change whatever, he's had a little bit of a dip in form, and he's struggling to reclaim that. So that can happen also with young players. Jude Bellingham now must have played, I'm guessing, 200 games maybe, which for a player of his age is very, very young. But he's brilliant on the ball. He's fantastic without the ball. He's an incredible athlete. He's still got to be managed correctly because he's still growing. He's still got 2 or 3 years of development left yet, where he has to grow. So his body does have to be managed in the right way.
Okay, let's build on that. You said Dele Alli. Now, he is a player that went to Tottenham. He didn't go to Manchester City. He didn't go to Chelsea or any of the big clubs, correct? And I mean that with a lot of respect. He didn't go to a team that was challenging for a title. And that's why maybe his growth has stopped, because that desire has gone because he's not winning anything.
Maybe, but they were challenging for the top 4. They were in the Champions League. He was in the England team at that point. Obviously, they got to a Champions League final. So again, that's about the individual and him making sure that he's the best that he can be and doing the best. Harry Kane hasn't suffered, being at Tottenham. He's still become one of the best strikers in the world. So it's Jude Bellingham seems to have a fantastic attitude. But I think we say that about Dele Alli, at a similar sort of age when he broke into the Tottenham team. And this is why maybe I'm thinking that it's maybe best for Jude Bellingham that he's not in the England squad, or he's not playing regularly for England at the moment, although he's probably good enough. He's in Dortmund. He's away from the English media. We're not seeing him week out. He's not on Match of the Day and on Sky Sports and whatever it might be, and we're lauding him. He's in all the papers. He's able to learn his game. And if he has a bad game at the moment, the English press probably don't notice, which is probably, and I'm sure he does have the odd bad game. That's probably a really good thing for him. Whereas if he was in England, you compare that to Phil Foden. Oh, he's not quite as good as we thought he was going to be. You know what the English press is like. It's boom or bust. He's either, the next Messiah, or he's hopeless. He's gone. His legs have gone. He can't do it anymore. He's too young, or whatever it might be. That's how it is in England, isn't it? So I think he's in a real safe place in Dortmund at the moment.
Say, for example, that he's made this decision to move to England finally. Would you pick a team that deserves, or rather requires, a hero to come and save them, or do you go to an established team with a good manager? Okay, say for example, then if it was your boy and you had to give him advice, correct? He's now making his way up the channel in terms of the leagues he's playing in. If you had to advise him,
I would go to the club that was the best fit for him, personally, in terms of development, in terms of coach, setup, where he's going to play, the chances of, if he plays well, the likelihood of him playing regularly. That's a huge thing. There's no point. Jude Bellingham's going to come, not as the finished article, but as, having played probably 200, 300 games, which is a lot of games, that gives him experience. So he wants to be going into a team. He wants to be playing week in, week out. He wants to be with good players. He wants to be challenging for things. So, I think you have to just wait and see and pick the right team at that point, and the right coach, the right manager. And you get a feel for that. You talk to the different managers, different coaches, and you get an understanding of what they're about. Manchester City, let's say when you're Manchester City and he's only going to play 20 games, like we've seen with Phil Foden. What's the point in that? That's almost a little bit of a step backwards. He needs to go to a team where he's not going to be the hero, but he's going to play pretty much week in, week out. You then look at, say, Manchester United, but if they got a coach or a coaching staff then could develop him further and make him even better player, I'm not so sure right now. But in 2 years' time, that might have changed. That may well be different. So then you start to look at, I'm talking about English teams at the moment. You look at Chelsea. Would he fit in? Could he take over? And N'Golo Kante's had quite a few injuries and has been struggling in the last couple of seasons. Could he be the perfect replacement for N'Golo Kante? Without a shadow of a doubt, he could. In a year's, 18 months' time. And if Tuchel is still there, we've seen what Chelsea done, that could be a good fit. So it depends on the fit. The manager, the club, ambition, all those sorts of things have to come into it.
All right. You mentioned United. I just have to say it because, United are playing Liverpool. We'll talk about that soon. If you were United, would you pick Declan Rice or Jude Bellingham to be in that midfield?
The way that I'd pick them both, if I'm honest. Can I have them both?
No Fred. Yeah, that's fine. That's fine. So no Fred and Scott McTominay.
Well, is Declan Rice better than Scott McTominay? Yes. Is he going to keep getting better? Yes. And he's an out-and-out holding midfield player.
Okay. Is
Jude Bellingham better than Fred and McTominay? Yes, without a shadow of a doubt. But he's more athletic. He's more of that box-to-box midfield player. So you could play Declan Rice, and this could be England's team. You could play, Declan Rice. You could play Jude Bellingham, who's going to be that, athleticism, in the middle of the park and get around and break things up and also break forward and score goals and do all those types of things, which is fantastic. And then you play with one other. That might be Bruno Fernandes or Paul Pogba, in fact, whoever that might be. So they're two different type of players. Declan Rice is more of an out-and-out holding player. Buy them both. If you can afford it, buy them both. Why would you not? All
right, fair enough. So Jude Bellingham to Manchester United. If Ole Gunnar Solskjaer is not there next year, I'm just saying it. I know you wanted to say it, but let's move on. Let's talk about Everton. Danny, Rafa Benitez, an established manager, a manager who's been there, done that at some of the biggest clubs in the world, like Newcastle. He's now at Everton, and correct me if I'm wrong, but it's a bit of a up and down thing with him right now, right? At Everton, or are they stable?
I think they were doing okay until yesterday. You're thinking, 2-1 up. New manager in at Watford, you expect them to get a little bit of a bounce, especially after what happened last week. And sometimes you just get crazy 5-10 minutes of games. And I think that's what happened yesterday. Within the space of 5 minutes, all of a sudden it was, 4-2, 5-2. It's like, what's going on? It was crazy. It was absolutely bonkers, that game. And every now and then that happens. But you can only have one of those a season. You can't allow that to happen again after this. That's when it does start to become a problem. And that's when, players on the pitch have to look at themselves, because up until, was it 75 minutes, things were going to plan. So that's not necessarily the manager's fault that crazy 10 minutes happens. Players have to self-manage in that situation. If you concede one, you get to 2-2, right, okay, we don't concede another one. Oh, we concede another one. Oh, don't concede. Oh, we've conceded another one. Definitely don't concede. Oh, no, we've conceded another one. So I'm not, it's quite difficult in that short space of time. What can the actual manager do? Because for 75 minutes, his game plan was working. Players were doing what they were supposed to be doing. Individual mistakes, individual errors suddenly cost you dear, and you're done for. And it's difficult because trying to be, realistic. What could Rafa Benitez do in that 3 or 4 minutes to change things differently? Hindsight's obviously a wonderful thing, but actually, looking at these, like, well, there's not a lot he can do. He's got to expect the players to step up.
Okay. We're running out of time. It's already 11 minutes. I mean, it is a 20-minute show. So let's move on to another manager. A team that he managed before Rafa Benitez is Liverpool, and Jurgen Klopp. I'm not sure if you have to believe the stories. He might be talking to these teams, national teams, in which his players are going to be representing their countries in the African Nations Cup. Thank you. I'm a professional. That's why I left the job, Danny. But is that something that worries you when a manager goes out and says, I'm going to go dictate things to national bodies and get my way with it?
No, because he's the manager of Liverpool Football Club. He's not the manager of any of those African nations. He's not concerned about whether Senegal or Nigeria, win the African Cup of Nations. He's concerned about his players, and that's the most important thing to him. So he's going to try, and his job is to look after Liverpool Football Club. So whether that works or not is a different story. So, but why wouldn't you go and say, well, look, if we can have our players a little bit longer, if we can keep them back, if you can look after them when they're away. Sir Alex Ferguson always used to do it back in the day, with the England players, the Welsh players, the Scottish players, whatever. Jurgen Klopp is doing the right thing. He's trying to look after Liverpool Football Club. I don't fault him for that. Whether he's successful, it's unlikely. But that's another matter.
But you knew this was coming the moment you signed these players. I mean, they could miss about 8 matches in total, but club or country, which is more important? I look at the teams that they go back and represent. They need the money more
in
than
terms
the
of
clubs.
from a player's perspective, I would say country, because you go back to these countries and you are a national hero. Okay, Liverpool pay your wages. Yep. Liverpool, that's the club you've signed to. But playing for your country is an honour, the highest honour that can be bestowed upon you. And if you go and win something, you become a national hero. You look at what England did in the Euros, almost winning, getting to a final. If you win that, you get knighted. You go down in the history books in your country forever. No matter where you go, you will always be remembered for that. You'll always be remembered as a good Liverpool player and having done great. But if you win, if you win the African Cup of Nations, you're almost king-like, aren't you? You almost become royalty, in that country. And that's where you're from. That's your heritage. That's the company. That's where you clearly have massive links to. So, as a player, for me, country always came first before club, because playing for your country is an honour. Playing for your country, playing for your club is effectively your job. There's a very, very slight difference.
So, okay, so that means, is he doing the right thing, Jurgen Klopp, by going and talking to these countries, these national bodies, and saying, can we keep these players a bit longer?
Of course he is, because he's doing the right. He's trying to do the best for Liverpool Football Club, and I get that totally, and I completely understand that. Why wouldn't you do that? Would be the answer. I'm sure Jurgen Klopp's bosses are saying to him, you need to speak to these people. You need to go and talk to these and make sure, let's do everything possible so we get these players for that extra length of time. If you don't ask, you don't get. So surely you've got to at least ask the questions.
Okay, he's asking the questions. And if he loses that, it's not a big deal, right? For Liverpool, can they survive without those players?
For a short space of time, yeah. They're going to have to, aren't they? Simple as that. It won't be easy. It won't be all of them for that amount of time, because they can't all get to the final. and you have to manage that, and that's why you have big squads, and that's why now, already in October, he's looking at the preparation for that, and he's, they'll already be thinking, right, okay, we'll play these players, but come that time in January when we need to maybe mix it around a little bit, what are we going to do? Who are we going to play?
All right, who's going to play? Manchester United versus Liverpool, the starting 11, at least for United. Liverpool, it picks itself, right?
Pretty much, yeah. I think they're very, very solid at the moment. They're looking fantastic. The front three is superb, and I think if Liverpool are right today, they could score a lot of goals in this game.
And Manchester United, that's the biggest problem, right? Even if you're a United fan, you're always uncertain who's going to be in that midfield, and that seems to be the biggest question.
That's often where games are won and lost. That's the most important thing. The midfield battle is, as we all know, is if you control the midfield, you control the game. And when you look at the moment, Manchester United's midfield, it can be good, it can be bad. It's very, very up and down at the moment. I'm not quite sure who's going to play in there either. So vitally important. I just think Liverpool have got a real point to prove this season, and especially to Manchester United. And I think they will go out there, and I think they'll have too much for Man United.
Okay, this is my final question on that game. We're running out of time, but when you see Jurgen Klopp, he's making the decisions. He's making those, that final starting 11. Who's going to be on the bench? It's him. Yeah, he might get some input here and there, but with Ole Gunnar Solskjaer, you always have to ask that question: is it Mike Phelan, Michael Carrick, Kieran McKenna, or am I just blowing this out of proportion?
No, I think you're right. I mean, Ollie doesn't often cover himself in glory in press conferences, and people will say, well, what's a press conference got to do with managing a football club? It's the way you present yourself. It's the authority that you hold over your team, over the club, over your players. You're the figurehead. You're the leader going into battle, if you like. And if you're sort of a bit dithery and going back on things that you've said, that's not what you want. You want precise instructions, demands from your leader. And Ollie doesn't always give that. His staff, I don't think, is massively experienced. Kieran McKenna, obviously Michael Carrick, are still very, very young. Mike Phelan's there, but he seems to be more rather of a confidant rather than actually doing too much and giving instructions. I don't know. I don't understand why Darren Fletcher's on the bench at the moment. He's technical director. He's technical director. He's or director of football. Why are you on the bench? Surely you should be upstairs watching from high up, dealing with that side of it. How many technical directors do you see on the bench in a game? None. So that's a little bit strange. So yeah, Jurgen Klopp is in charge of Liverpool, and what Jurgen says goes. Manchester United, I'm not so sure. I think there might be a lot of other voices that have maybe a little bit too much influence and too much input in that dressing room. And will that unsettle players on the bench over there, correct? And you're just there looking at, there's my manager there, there's the first team coach, there's three guys, his in-law over there trying to give me instructions, that's my auntie over there trying to tell me not to listen to him. And then you've got Ronaldo, Varane in the corner saying, well, hang on a minute. This is how you win things. This is what we did at Real Madrid. This is what you need to do. And who's to argue with that effectively? So imagine there can be too many messages, but Ronaldo obviously wants what Ronaldo wants. So if that doesn't quite tie up with Ole Gunnar Solskjaer, what he wants, well, you're on the pitch. Who are you going to listen to? Are you going to do what the manager wants, or are you going to do what Ronaldo wants? You should be doing what Ole Gunnar Solskjaer wants. But I'm not sure that's the case. So that's when you start to get issues and start to get problems. So now you've got an entire army of first team coaches beside you. You've got an enigmatic character on the pitch who is a proven winner, and it's so. I'm finding it hard to describe, what it would be to be in a situation like that when you have so many people telling you different tactical things. It's like when I come into studio and do stuff with you, and your director's told you to do something, and I come in and say, "No, Roshan, we're not doing that. We're doing something else because I think it's better." Well, who do you listen to? It's like you want to go, well, I respect Danny's opinion, but actually I'm getting paid by this guy and he's my boss. So you should really do what the director tells you. Simple as that. So but all of a sudden you then get a little bit of, oh, should I, shan't I? what's the best thing to do, and it causes problems, and that's the problem when you have big characters that are prepared to express themselves. Becomes difficult to manage, and when you look at that dressing room at Manchester United right now, I think it's a difficult dressing room to manage. Big characters, big egos, big voices. Is the manager big enough to stand up to that? So Alex Ferguson was. I'm not convinced Ole Gunnar Solskjaer is.
Thanks for wrapping that up, Danny Mills. All the highlights on our Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram account. Till the next time, take care.